Welcome to the Joyride podcast, where we explore the path to becoming your most authentic self. I'm your host, Rebekah Joy, a self-development coach, human design expert, spiritual enthusiast, and motivational speaker who's absolutely obsessed with personal growth and transformation. On this podcast, I'll be sharing my own journey and insights to help you activate your power, amplify your confidence, and become the most magnetic version of yourself. Each episode delivers actionable strategies, powerful energy shifts, and spiritual wisdom that you can immediately apply to break through any limitations and create lasting change. Whether you're seeking deeper self-understanding, professional growth, or spiritual connection, the Joyride gives you the tools to transform your potential into your new abundant reality. Welcome to the Joyride. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to be here with you. I'm so excited to have you listening, and I'm very excited for the topic of today's conversation, which is going to be all about vulnerability. Something that I think each and every one of us is continuously working at. And to be honest, if I'm thinking about it, I truly believe that vulnerability is one of, honestly, the core pillars that we are all rigorously, being challenged to become in different situations in life. So that's what we're going to get into today. Before I started recording this episode, I wanted to ask good old ChatGPT, my robot bestie, who I go to all of the time for information, what exactly does vulnerability mean? And I want to read it verbatim because I do not want to butcher any of the incredible insight that it gave to me. So, word for word, this is what ChatGPT said. Being vulnerable means allowing yourself to be open, honest, and emotionally exposed, especially in situations where there is risk of judgment, rejection, or uncertainty. It's saying, this is how I truly feel. This is what I need. I don't have it all figured out, and I care deeply. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It's raw courage. It's the foundation of real connection, trust, intimacy, and growth. You can't fully receive love, support, or success without being willing to be seen in your truth. As Brené Brown puts it, vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. It's the realest, bravest thing you can do. So I have been exercising my vulnerability muscle quite a lot lately in very new ways. The last week especially, a lot of tears have been shed. I have exposed myself in so many new ways, not just in this past week, throughout the course of these past few months, but vulnerability, this specific word, has come up a lot for me. So I wanted to make sure that I talked about it and, brought light to, how we can exercise our vulnerability muscle and how we can all become more vulnerable and why it's so important. So one of my coaching clients, who I love so much. She is so near and dear to my heart. She is a Gemini sun. Her soul shines so bright, truly. And I have all of my coaching clients fill out end of month reflections. It's very important for me as their coach to not only see and, hear through their own lens, what they have experienced within the past month, where there have been challenges and struggles, but also where they have experienced wins and seen results and all of the things. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, in one of her end of month coaching reflections, she ended with vulnerability breeds breakthrough. And there are so many things that she says that really strike a chord with me. And it was one of those lines that I was like, damn, I got to write this down. This is a really, really good line. And then today, when I was taking a shower earlier, I was listening to actually a podcast episode that she had sent me all about Gemini season. And she was like, oh my gosh, I just listened to this podcast episode. It's validated so much of what I've been feeling this month and the whole thing. And she knows that I'm a Gemini sun too. So we have a lot of overlap and a lot of resonance between our two charts. And so I listened to this podcast episode, and one of the big themes was vulnerability. And I can only speak on my behalf, but I'm sure that you as a listener can attest to this as well. There have been so many experiences that I've gone through in life that I didn't really have the right word to explain it. Or, you don't really know that you're going through something, and then you hear someone talk about an experience, or you hear someone share about something, and you're like, oh wait, I just went through that too. And it's happened to me a lot of times in my life, and that's one, if not honestly the main reason why I fell in love with the human design system so much when I first came across it years ago, is because I had felt like I never fully had the language to describe all of these experiences that I had gone through and all of these feelings that I had felt. And finally, thank God, I had found a system that validated me through language. And that's why I think in this time specifically, the season of Virgo and the season of Gemini, both being ruled by the planet of communication, we really get to expose ourselves to the power of language. And I know that a lot of people can get really caught up in this AI heavy world right now, and we're all going to be overtaken by robots. And the way that I see it is like, ChatGPT is my therapist, and it mirrors back to me through language what I am needing to see within myself. And will it ever replace a human? Absolutely not. But it's able to put language towards things that I can't myself quite articulate yet. And so I just think that it's such an incredible, powerful tool that we have right at our fingertips. And when it comes to language, especially, hearing other people being able to articulate themselves through their own language is just, it's so powerful. And I think that communication in and itself is something, or more so a skill, that a lot of people lack. And so when it comes to being vulnerable, I know that we all have our ways in which, maybe I don't want to put words into your mouth, but at least for me, there have been many ways in which vulnerability comes a lot easier to me. For instance, in my work, in showing up and exposing myself in such a raw, unfiltered way through a podcast, through relaunching my YouTube channel and literally putting the thoughts that I have in my mind on YouTube and saying, hey, people, come watch my videos and let me cross my fingers and hope that these videos change your life, which I believe that they will. And I have been someone myself that has never really viewed, that is not a word. Here I am just making up words over here. Viewed, I've never really, I think, seen the crossover between self-expression and being vulnerable. And I don't know why. I think right now it's all kind of making sense to me, almost in like a love triangle. But a lot of people have told me over the past few years, you're so brave, you're so courageous. And I'm like, this is just who I am. Like, maybe to you it comes off that way. But now I'm realizing that when people go out of their way to be honest and be raw and expose themselves, you are being vulnerable. And to the person, in my position, it's felt like this is just who I am. This comes very effortlessly to me. This comes very naturally to me. And on top of that, I've been able to understand why this all comes so naturally to me because of the systems, right? Because of astrology and because of the human design system. And because within these systems, you learn why things are naturally for you, or why things come so naturally for you. And you also learn why you struggle in certain areas, and you learn why you have hardship in certain areas. And, I think for me, having that knowledge has been so powerful. And so obviously I'm so grateful for the people that come to me and they want to be in my space because, they are, I don't know, they see me as a role model or an example, or maybe they see it as a space for them to be safe with their own feelings, with their own thoughts, with their own belief systems about life. I've also learned about myself, with my big three, being a Virgo sun, I'm a big analyzer. I analyze things. I am in my head a lot of the time. And with my Gemini sun, I'm a big expresser. I think that's a word. If it's not, it is now. I love to express myself, and I, analyze these thoughts, and I have my thought patterns, and I'm able to express that through language, through communication. And then with my Cancer rising that I've just come to love so, so much, not only am I deeply emotional and very sensitive, but I'm here to nourish and I'm here to create a safe space where all of these thoughts and all of these perspectives and all of these beliefs can be held and can be nourished and can be, supported in a safe way. And so, going back to that quote, or it's now a quote for me, what my client had said about vulnerability breeds breakthrough. It's something that I have experienced so much over my adolescent period and, shifting into adulthood. But it has become, very clear to me how vulnerable I have become in these past few months and exposing myself in ways that I have never fully allowed myself to be vulnerable before. Like I said, showing up and recording myself on a podcast, it's like no one's here watching me. It's just little old me. I'm in my office. I'm recording this. I've got no makeup on. It's very natural. It's very raw, and it's very real. And because I have created this safe space for me to be vulnerable, I am able to share these breakthroughs with all of you. And I think, when it comes to vulnerability, that we need to understand is that it's very, very hard to be vulnerable when you aren't in a safe space. Like, think about how many times that you have struggled when it comes to your emotions, whether within a relationship, or you've struggled with money, or you've struggled with friendships, and you're not able to be vulnerable because it does not feel like a safe space to do so. When I was going through this very challenging time at the end of last year, and I was really analyzing a lot of my thought patterns and how I viewed money and how I viewed love and all these things, I realized that especially in relationships with men, I had suffered a lot with not feeling safe to fully express my emotions. And it had caused this reoccurring cycle in all of the relationships and dating experiences that I had. And I came to realize, man, like none of these men fully allowed me to feel safe to just say what was on my heart and say what was on my mind. And, it's something that I've not only realized, but, because of that realization, I have now created, or I don't want to say created a new pattern, but I've stopped that pattern from happening in the future because I have had that realization about safety and about vulnerability. And, I think a lot of times when we're in this position where we are scared to be vulnerable, it comes, unfortunately, and I have dealt with this very recently, it comes from a place of defeat. It feels like I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it all on my own. I'm not good enough. Why can't I just figure this out? It feels like you are fighting a war, and it's you against everyone else. And, the beautiful realization about being vulnerable is that you actually, when you are vulnerable and you expose yourself emotionally, and you come forward and you say, this is how I feel. And I don't want to be defensive about it. This is just how I feel. I need help. I need support. I want you to help guide me through this. Or just simply sharing what's on your heart without this, this playback loop in your head of, what is this person going to think about me? Oh my God, the judgment, and then this and then that, blah, 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 whatever. When you let that go and you simply step forward, there is this, I think, incredible element of, it's not, how do I say this? There's this level of certainty that you have, right? When you're able to step forward and you're being vulnerable and you're saying hey, I need help in this. What's so cool about it is that you're also being certain about what you want the outcome to be, right? And maybe that outcome is, I'm just going through a lot right now and I just want to be heard. That's it, And maybe that outcome is, I'm struggling financially and I'm being very vulnerable because I don't want to struggle financially anymore. Or maybe it's, I've been single for, 15 years after divorce, and I'm being very vulnerable and I'm putting myself out there because I don't want to be single anymore. Recently I've discovered that, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable and you take those steps forward, the breakthroughs literally come so much quicker than you think. I have been in so many circumstances and I have helped. I'm so fortunate that I've been able to help other people, in these stages, being a coach, when they are very, very vulnerable and they need help and they need support and they need guidance. But it's crazy to me, how short of a time frame you can change so much when you are willing to be vulnerable. And I've experienced it myself. And it's one of those things that I think we just forget, because a lot of us, especially for the strong ass independent women out there, just like myself listening to this, it's very hard to break that pattern. It has been very hard for me to move from being this independent woman that says, it's not that I don't love you, but I'm not letting you in because I think that I can handle it all. But what that has actually done for me is it has put me in these reoccurring patterns and these reoccurring feedback loops that I just, it feels like I'm a hamster on a wheel and I can't get myself off of it until I say enough, and usually that enough point, unfortunately for me and a lot of people have experienced this, is, the huge ego death, or you hit fucking rock bottom. I mean, I have hit rock bottom so many times in so many different ways, but it's always magnificent to me how high I'm able to rise, and Phoenix from the ashes type of vibe. It's well, damn, why did I let it get to that point? Why did I let myself get to this point where I'm on my hands and knees and I'm what the fuck do I do? And a lot of times I'm at that point because I'm not willing to step forward and just be vulnerable. But I will say the power in being vulnerable is in doing it in the right places with the right people. And if you are not quite yet, you don't really understand, or you don't really know who those people are and what those spaces are, that can be very terrifying. And, it makes you want to hold back. And, that's why a lot of people, unfortunately, have a lot of regrets in life. Maybe they don't say I love you to the person that they really truly loved, or they don't take this certain job, or, a lot of people, unfortunately, have a lot of regrets in life because they're scared of being vulnerable. They're scared of putting themselves on the line, of being raw, of being honest, of being emotionally exposed, because they're scared of what people are going to think. Whether it's, oh, she can't handle it, and they have their judgments and they're going to think the way that they're going to think. But it's not about them. It's never about them. It's about you. It's so nice to have people that you can be vulnerable with. People that say, I hear you and I feel you and I see you, and I may not fully understand, but that's okay. It's something that I used to hold very close to my chest for most of my 20s. It was this energy about me that was like, you don't understand me, so I'm just going to keep it to myself and I'm just going to figure it out. But again, with having that energy, there were good parts to holding on to that identity. I became a very independent, very confident woman, but it also did not serve me in a lot of ways. And, I'm extremely grateful for every single challenge and struggle and hurdle that I've gone through in my 20s, but I'm also at the point where I'm like, okay, I fucking get it. I get it. And it's up to me to be vulnerable. It's a very different position when someone is coming to you and saying, hey, I can help you, I can do this for you, but when you are able to step forward and take that first step towards the life that you want and say, I am putting myself out there and I am being vulnerable, and you may have your judgments and whatever, but it is just seriously so crazy the effects that come with it and how much quicker you actually get to the destination. We tend to make things a lot more complicated than they need to be. We can actually simplify so much of this. And, I remember talking to a friend once about clients, after they've worked with you for a certain amount of time, and do you get upset and do you get hurt? And I remember telling her, I've had plenty of clients who have worked with me for 3 years, or sorry, not 3 years, 3 months. And, even though I'm sad that I won't see them every week or every other week, and I love being in their energy, and, as a coach, I almost feel like I'm a mama bear, and I love to see them grow and I love to see them evolve, but I'm also like, they have made huge strides in those 3 months. So not only am I doing a great job, but because, they were able to show up and be honest and be truthful. And that's something that I make very clear. I'm like, you got to be truthful with me. There's no sugarcoating here. We're not doing bullshit. Oh, let's, dance around the subject. It's like, you have to be willing to be raw, and you have to be willing to expose yourself, because, or else, I can't help you. Not only can I not help you, but you're wasting your time and you're wasting your money, So my response to that was, I feel really, really proud. And if anything, it is so cool to now see them on the other side making these huge leaps in their life, whether that's personally, professionally. And yeah, again, it's a bummer sometimes because, you foster these very, very deep relationships that, I pour so much of my love and care and energy and attention into. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I have experienced it myself. So I'm not going to sit here and be hypocritical, because I have worked with plenty of people for short spurts of time. Some people I've worked with for just a few months, some people I've worked with for years. But those people that I've worked with for a few short months, like my coach, for instance, I just wrapped up a 3-month container with her. And I experienced such tremendous growth in myself. I'm like, holy shit, Sean. Like, I am literally a different person than who I was coming into this. And I'm so proud of who that person was. But it is only because I was willing to put myself out there. It was only because I was willing to put myself out on the line. And I kind of went back and forth on it. I'm like, do I really need this? Do I really need that? And then I was like, you know what? I love her. And for me, it always comes down to, am I safe? Does she or whoever, the person is that you are looking to for for help, support, whatever the person to be vulnerable with, do they allow you to feel safe? And I think why a lot of people truly don't experience this growth that they are initially looking for is because the person or the people or the space that you're going to where you want to be vulnerable, they don't make you feel safe. And, sometimes that safety comes from you speaking up and saying, this is what I need for you to make me feel safe. I just had a conversation with my parents about this is who I am. And I am really exposing myself here, and I'm putting myself out, and I am letting you in on me and letting you in on my world in ways that I've never done before. So, I'm not asking you to become a different person, but, this is how I feel, and this is who I am, and this is what I need to feel safe. And in order to keep momentum moving and to keep progress happening, I need to feel safe, and you need to feel safe. And if you can't feel safe, fully safe, it's very hard for you to experience sustainable growth. I am not the person that is, what's the right word? I am not moved by someone being mean to me. And someone, I think when I think about this, what I'm trying to articulate to you is the difference between men and women. With women, we're so deep and we're emotional and we're intuitive, and I when it comes to men, and I think a lot of times what allows them to move forward and create real change and real momentum and real progress is there's a lot of pressure, and there's this competitive edge, and there's almost there's a lot of they use anger, I guess, to get them to where they want to go. And there are many parts of me that I've felt deeply masculine, and where I have done things out of anger and out of just so much riled up, pent up energy and pressure and all this stuff. But it works in the short term, but it does not work in the long term. Anyone that I've worked with in my life, I've worked with because they have allowed me to feel safe. And in doing so, I have been able to not just feel, but really be my authentic self around these people. And I've worked with men, I've worked with women, and I'm talking anywhere from body work to, mental work, spiritual, physical. I have worked with so many different types of people. But at the end of the day, the thing that keeps me coming back is they are this level of safety, or they are able to create a container for me to feel safe. And what I think one of the, biggest challenges in life, but also one of the biggest blessings and gifts that we are all here to experience in life is who makes us feel safe, right? It's our core group of friends. It's our partner. For a lot of people, it's actually not their family. So when you are able to experience that with your blood, with your family, it is so special, because for a lot of people, they genuinely don't feel safe. And, I think the power in me using my voice and the power of sharing your story and sharing your voice and sharing what you have to say is that I'm creating an opportunity for other people to be vulnerable. And when you are vulnerable and you expose yourself and you express yourself in those raw ways, you are claiming to the world, and you are, sharing this level of certainty of this is what I want for my life, And to me, that's ultimate manifestation hack, right? Because when you are able to let people in, and you are able to not just fight this war where it's you against the rest of the world, but it's you now have people on your battlefield with you, and they are fighting with you. And there's nothing worse than, when you're supposed to be friends, or you are on the same team and then you're fighting within the team. It's so hard. How can we, defeat the opponent if the people who are supposed to be on my team are against me? You can't, right? that's when we experience true partnership and true peace. And that only comes with being vulnerable. And, before you can be vulnerable with other people, you have to be vulnerable with yourself. And that's the number one key here. And it's not coming from a place of, you stupid piece of shit, you couldn't figure it out, you couldn't do this, why can't you do this, blah, 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 that our ego likes to continuously feed us these non-truths about ourselves, these lies, right? But when you are able to step forward and say, hey, this isn't working for me anymore. I don't want to continue to live like this. I don't want to continue to be this type of person. There is so much bravery and so much courage that comes from you admitting to yourself and you being vulnerable with yourself. And it may feel harder to expose that to someone else. But once you do, there is this comfort when you have gotten to this place where you know yourself so well, right? And you've done the work and you have put in your time and energy, and, when you are able to come forward and be vulnerable with someone else and expose yourself in that way, there's so much pride that comes with that. Like, it was difficult. And it was challenging and very terrifying. But the fact that I was able to share about me, about my truths and what is happening at my core, that I believe is when you really start to make true change in your life. And I don't want to discredit, you doing things on your own, right? Because as we know, there's so much that we can do on our own. But what I'm also learning and being exposed to is this beautiful element, which is partnership. And partnership comes with being vulnerable with other people. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to changing your life and making huge strides, it'll always be on you. Like, let's not get that twisted, When I work with my clients, it's like, I'm here to hold the space and to create the safe container for you. But I'm not waking up with you every day. And I'm not the one, that is making your goals for you. And I'm not the one deciding what life you want to live. That's completely up to you. But if I can create this safe space to help you get there, not only so that you get there faster, which you will, because that's pretty inevitable when you let people in and you be vulnerable, but there just is so much magic that happens when you let people in your world and expressing what you want and expressing how you feel and expressing what you're ready to let go of. Because, people are resources. And we all need resources in order for us to get to where we want to go. So when we're able to be vulnerable and open ourselves up to that, think about how much more powerful everything that you are, everything that you've become, and everything that you will become just becomes, right? Like, it truly is so cool to see that transformation take place. And, when you are moving through it yourself and then you also get to be that for other people, it's like we see the full circle, like the full circle of life, the full circle of creation. When not only you are able to let someone else be vulnerable, but you are also, being vulnerable yourself in different areas of life. And, I hope that this episode and listening to it inspires you to take action in where you can be vulnerable. And I've also been thinking a lot about the new Saturn placement. It was in Pisces for, I think, like 10 years, And now it's moved into Aries. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's a very bold, it's a very independent energy. It's also a very selfish energy. But I think, in sharing about this topic of being raw and honest, when you are bold and when you are courageous and when you can step forward in your own way and exude this independence about you and claim and say, this is what I need from the world. This is what I need help with. This is where I am not doing well, and this is where I want to do really well. Fortune favors the bold. I think about that all the time. And a lot of times we have conditioned ourselves to just close ourselves off and we got to figure this out. We have to do this all alone. But what if it was actually the opposite, right? I'm not saying don't take accountability over yourself and your actions in your world, because you absolutely need to be. But what if instead you were brave and you were bold and you were courageous and you took that step forward and said, hey, this is what's happening. Who wants to help me? Who wants to support me? I also was listening to a Skinny Confidential podcast episode on my way home from North Carolina the other day, back to Austin. And the episode was with Ben Nemtin, I think that's his name. He's a motivational speaker. He wrote this bucket list book. And I was really inspired by him sharing his story about this time in his life when he was, I guess they call it university in Canada. He was in college and he fell into a depression and he basically quit all of his classes. He stopped playing rugby, all this stuff. And he came up with this idea to make this bucket list with one of his best friends. And for the next 2 weeks, they were going to go on a road trip. And he said there was one rule. The rule was you had to imagine that you had I think he said $100 million budget, something like that. And basically you could write anything down on this. And so what they actually did was they started to post online their bucket list. And they started to, share all of these crazy things that they wanted to do. And they were asking for help. And they were being really vulnerable and saying, this is on our bucket list and, we can't get to this person without help. And he was explaining that by sharing this bucket list and by putting it out onto the internet, a lot of people came across it and were saying, hey, I can get you this. Hey, I can, you want to, I don't know. There were crazy things on this bucket list. I think he said one of them was playing basketball with Barack Obama, and another one for his friend was asking Taylor Swift out. So because they were honest about what they wanted and they put this list out there, so many people were able to step forward and say, hey, I can help you get there. And when I heard that part of the podcast episode, I was like, this is teaching me a lot right now. And I felt really called to share about it because, again, so often we think, it really takes a hit on our ego if we can't figure it out. There have been so many things, and I can't wait to write multiple books one day and give you guys all a tell-all about all of the ways that I really, really, really struggled, because I think it's going to maybe not blow some minds, but I think for some people it will. But also, I think a lot of people will step back and be like, damn, and she still showed up? And I think that's the power of people who we see make it, right? I just came across this YouTube video of these two girls who, I guess, teach branding. And it was a video about spending $1 million in Dubai. And so I'm watching this video and I'm hearing this woman talk about how when she was 29 years old and up until she was 29, she was broke. And now she's 34 and she's making, I don't even know how much money. And even though the video attracted me because I'm ooh, I'm curious. I just want to see because, I love to put myself in that energy. There was something really missing for me. I'm drawn to people that are vulnerable. I like hearing about people's struggles and I like hearing about people's hardships because to me, I want to see the trajectory. The fact that I've been able to watch, some of these YouTube girls, Jaclyn Hill and Desi Perkins and Katie and all these Carly Bible and people who, have been going at this for over a decade, and to see all of their success, not only am I damn, it all makes sense because they never gave up, right? But it's because that makes sense to me, I get to see where they're at now, but I've also seen them at the bottom. And I've seen them work their ass off day in and day out. And we have no idea what's happening behind closed doors. And obviously for a lot of these people, they do share a lot about their lives, but we don't know, the intricacies of their family life and their home life and their personal life. So to me, I'm it makes it so much more not only enjoyable, but it makes me want to invest in these people even more and invest myself into continuing to watch their journey and support them from afar, because I'm like, I've seen they have been so vulnerable with me throughout their own path and their own trajectory. It just makes me want to support them even more. And so I find I'm at least a little reluctant when I see these people that are like, I made $30 million on YouTube, but it's like, well, you haven't shown me anything. How'd you get there? And maybe that's me being nosy, and I do have a very curious mind, but I like to see the raw. I like to see the depth. I like to see the vulnerability that people show me. And so, I do my best to be vulnerable, but I also know that, I could be better. And I could not only be better and sharing more with you all, but I also can be better and being vulnerable in my own life in certain ways, and stretching myself and expanding myself and being vulnerable in ways that really scare the fucking shit out of me. But I have learned every single time that when I do those things, and I still choose to do it, even when I'm fearful and even when I'm terrified, that's when the breakthroughs happen. That's when my life shifts. That's when I experience massive growth and huge things happen. And I know that you've experienced it too. I know that you've experienced it, whether it's in your career, in your relationships, it's so terrifying to say I love you. I mean, at least I have felt that way. When you say I love you to someone and you're like, oh my God, well, what if they don't feel that way? And blah, blah, blah. Like, it's terrifying. But when they say it back and when you feel that mutual feeling back, you're like, oh my God, why was I so scared? Like I even was watching one of my favorite YouTube couples, Julia and Hunter Havens, their birth vlog this morning of their second son. And I was like crying at the end. I was so emotional seeing them hold, their sweet baby boy. And I'm watching this and I'm like, I can't wait for that. Is it absolutely terrifying? Oh my God. Like the thought of just growing this baby and then having birth, I'm like, oh my God, that puts you in such a vulnerable state because we all know the complications that can happen. I mean, it is just so wild. But, that all starts off with this seed, right? And think about it, what gets you to the point of growing a successful career with your partner, having multiple children, and living a life that you're so proud of, you have to take those vulnerable first steps. For some people, it's being vulnerable to change the way that they feel about themselves. Maybe it's like, I want to lose 50 pounds because in doing so, I'm taking control over my life. And maybe in taking that first step of getting a personal trainer and hiring a nutritionist, you meet the love of your life and then it spirals. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're willing to take those first steps that feel huge, they feel like, how am I going to take these first steps? I mean, I remember when I first started this business and it's just like, you're so vulnerable. And for me, it's like I didn't go to school for marketing and I didn't have all these jobs that taught me all about business. And I'm still figuring it out every single day. But because I choose to be vulnerable in what I'm doing, that is what gets me further down the road. That's what actually brings the progress. And it's a hard pill to swallow when you say, fuck, I'm being vulnerable. And it's hard. And I think what I've learned about myself is that, we don't need to be so vulnerable and so exposed to everyone. There's this beautiful element of privacy that we are allowed to have. But also, in what ways are you stopping yourself from being vulnerable with the people that you really need to be vulnerable with the people that could really, really help you change your life, that could really be an anchor for you, that can be a true north star for you, people that can really, fight on your team with you. I think it's so important to cultivate that honest level of support. And again, we don't need to expose everything to everyone, because there's power in having that level of entitlement of saying, I'm going to expose myself to you because I feel safe with you. And, that's the power of having the right partner. That's the power of having, the right friendships. It's the power of having the right mentor and the right coach and the right therapist and the right everything, right? Because not everyone is meant to be for us. But in order to find out who is, that only comes through being vulnerable. That is what I have for you today on this episode of the Joyride podcast. But before I leave you, I do want to mention that I have some new offerings. So I have my signature breakthrough session, but a few things have changed. I am now offering a 45-minute breakthrough session, which is called the Joy Experience. And this is being offered to new clients at a special price of $177. This is only available for new clients, but if you have come across my podcast, you've come across any of my content, any of my YouTube videos, which I hope that you are enjoying, and you are interested in having a session with me, whether that's learning more about your human design or even being introduced to the system, your astrology chart, you are, navigating big breakthroughs in your life, new changes, moves, relationships, jobs, seriously, whatever it is. I mean, we're all constantly moving through change, especially in the season that we're in. This session is designed for you. So that is the new client special, the Joy Experience. It's 45 minutes at that discounted price. But I also now have my signature Joy Experience session, which is the breakthrough session, which is an hour, and that is $222. So for any of my, reoccurring clients, anyone that wants to come back, they've had a session with me and they're interested in receiving more safe support and guidance, that is what those sessions are designed for. Beyond that, I have my 2 coaching containers, which are a 3-month container where we meet once a week for 3 months, and then a 6-month container where we meet twice a month. So I have a few openings for those coaching containers. So if you are interested in either a coaching container, a session, or you just want to learn more, make sure that you head to my website. My website has my YouTube linked. It also has this podcast linked, but you're listening to it, so I'm sure that you don't need that link. But anything else you need from me, you're interested in my workout program, everything is linked on my website, which will also be included down below in the show notes. But I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Of course, like always, make sure that you like the podcast, that you leave me a comment, maybe on your favorite part. You share it with someone who you feel needs to hear this message today. And I am rooting for you. And I am really hopeful that you will listen to this episode and it will inspire you to be more vulnerable in your life. Because when you are vulnerable, miracles happen. I love you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And I will see you in the next episode.